What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cosmic Wonder. A lot is happening over at Warner Brothers and DC Studios as they prepare for their next DCU projects, Supergirl and Peacemaker. A lot of rumblings going around about a Supergirl test screening that DC might have possibly done. Not the same screenings that, say, Marvel Studios did for the Fantastic Four and even DC did for Superman before to the public. These are more private screenings, but we'll jump into that in just a bit. There's a lot of new insider reports about Peacemaker Season 2. It looks like they made a major change to a Justice League scene that they do plan to re-show, but they have reshot certain scenes for Peacemaker Season 2. The show comes out in 10 days on HBO Max, and usually when you get this close to a show releasing, yeah, stuff starts to leak out. Also, looks like we could potentially get a pretty crazy team up of Peacemaker and Batman, or at least the two of them in the same room, as John Cena recently said that the one character that he would like to meet up with in the DCU is Batman. And I think that would be incredibly cool, especially after the scene that we got in the first season of Peacemaker.
Riddle me this, how many people you think Batman's indirectly murdered by being too much of a candy ass not to kill these fools who clearly need to be smoked once and for all?
But new reports today give us some insight on how DC is planning on starting off Peacemaker Season 2. It looks like the old Justice League that appeared at the end of Peacemaker Season 1 has been replaced. And honestly, after reading this report, it just makes a ton of sense. I do wonder if there are going to be more casual fans who get sort of confused a little bit, but I think for the most part, this is a great move. The insider My Time to Shine Hello has recently learned a lot about Peacemaker Season 2, it seems, as she has put out multiple reports about what to expect. And the first big thing that everybody is talking about right now is the opening of Peacemaker Season 2. James Gunn himself has already confirmed that there is going to be a previously on Peacemaker Season 1 to start off Peacemaker Season 2. And he was very specific to say anything that they show in that is canon to the new DCU continuity. In this recap, anything they mention or show is canon to the new DCU, so obviously they're not going to show the old Justice League. Even though some of them were silhouettes, which is what they're going to do with this new version of it, they still weren't about to show that old scene of the very ending of Peacemaker Season 1 where the Justice League shows up. Instead, according to My Time to Shine Hello, they reshot that ending, just that specific scene, where Peacemaker is walking out with Amelia Harcourt and he sees the Justice League. So they reshot that. According to My Time to Shine Hello, she states the first episode of Peacemaker Season 2 opens with previously in the DCU. She states it's mostly all Season 1 footage, but there are a couple of changes. Daniel Brooks's character, Leota, now talks about calling in the Justice Gang, not the Justice League. And Shine states they reshot that Justice League cameo from the finale. Now it's Mr. Terrific, Superman, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Supergirl. However, there is a little bit of a catch. Some of them are just going to be silhouettes. She states all but Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl are in shadow, so you'll only really see in detail Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl. And I understand why they're doing this, because it's basically what they did with the Justice League before. We saw four of them show up, Batman wasn't there, but we only really saw Aquaman and the Flash. And since none of these characters are canon anymore to the new DCU, they reshot them with the Justice Gang. So this makes perfect sense. Hopefully it doesn't confuse too many casual viewers. They've done a pretty decent job of explaining things so far, so I'm sure it'll be handled very well. And it's interesting that they throw Supergirl into this if this report is true, because that implies that she might become a member of the Justice Gang. And it's interesting that they didn't put a silhouette of Batman in there, even though we know Batman is coming with the Brave and the Bold. And speaking of Batman, John Cena recently said that he wants to be in a room with Batman. Recently at Fan Expo, John Cena was asked who he'd like to see play the Dark Knight if the two DC characters ever shared the screen, in which he said, "Gosh, I would just like to see Peacemaker and Batman in the same room. I don't care who Batman is. I might get one of my younger brothers to put on a Batman costume. I'll steal the Peacemaker outfit just so we can make it happen. I don't know. But I know that there's a lot of interest around both characters." And here's where it gets really interesting. He says, "If I learned one thing about entertainment, when you guys are interested, eventually someone hears you. So I'm crossing my fingers and hopefully that can happen. So it seems to me that DC, and James Gunn specifically, listens to the fans. So maybe if we all start talking about Peacemaker and Batman teaming up, we'll actually get it in the DCU. Another thing that My Time to Shine Hello had to say is that Peacemaker is going to make fun of 30 Seconds to Mars in Peacemaker Season 2. So you can be sure Jared Leto isn't coming back. Not that I thought he would be coming back, but it is interesting that they included something in there making fun of 30 Seconds to Mars, Jared Leto's band. Now, moving on to Supergirl, and two interesting notes here about Supergirl. One is the test screenings, which I mentioned before, and the other is that right now, box office analyst Luis Fernando says that Supergirl could outperform Brand New Day at the box office next July. And look, I'm here for Supergirl. I really am. I love what James Gunn is planning to do with Supergirl in the Supergirl movie. I'm excited for her to join the DCU, but Spider-Man is arguably the biggest superhero in the world. The Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy did incredibly well at the box office, and not to mention No Way Home did $1.92 billion at the box office. Granted, Toby and Andrew were in the film, but still, Spider-Man is an insanely big character. So I'm not sure about that report, but Warner Brothers is on a roll right now. They've had the most successful year in movie studio history. But we'll talk about that after the Supergirl test screening reports. And what we're hearing is that recently Supergirl was screened in rough cut form last week and was well received. This report is coming from the insider Thwipt. We'll treat this as a rumor for now because obviously we cannot confirm if the test screening actually happened, but according to the report, it did, and it was well received. And recently with Superman, James Gunn did do many test screenings to figure out what was working with the movie with audiences and what wasn't. So it does make sense that they would start to utilize test screenings more because it really does seem like it did help Superman out. We heard he cut some scenes that didn't seem right in the movie. They felt a little bit out of place. So why not do that in the beginning when you have a rough cut to basically save time? You screen it early, you find out what doesn't work early or what could use some improvement. That way you can improve on it. Then you do more test screenings down the road. That way, by the time the release date gets here, you've pretty much made the best possible version of the film that you could possibly make. And that does also include reshooting things as well. If this is true, I actually do like this because it gives them plenty of time to actually go in and do those reshoots. Then make sure all of the effects look spot on. And best believe Warner Brothers is going to make sure they can do everything they can to make this movie amazing as well. Because they're coming off of the success of Superman, it seems like Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be a hit. But then we have Wonder Woman and Batman. James Gunn said those two are the priorities aside from Superman and Supergirl. So they need Supergirl to be good to keep the hype going for the other movies. And right now, Warner Brothers is doing incredibly well. They have become the first studio in history to have 6 consecutive films earn $40 million openings. Those films were Minecraft at $162.8 million, Sinners with $48 million, Final Destination Bloodlines $51.6 million, F1 at $57 million, Superman $125 million, and Weapons at $42.5 million. So clearly over at Warner Brothers, they're doing things right now. Let's hope they continue it with Peacemaker Season 2, Supergirl, Wonder Woman, and eventually Batman. So go ahead and let us know your thoughts about all of this news in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest DC news. Please give the video a like, and you can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.